What will you do if I voted for you? Leave politics to the big boys. Find a hobby. You look nice. Actually, you should have worn a skirt. I heard all of this as a young woman running for the German parliament at age 19. I wanted to debate budgets, foreign and economic policy. Yet, I was forced to defend my own existence as a young female candidate. My name is Ortwein. I'm an undergrad here at Duke University, and I'm from Stuttgart, Germany, which is in the southwest. Before I get into my talk, I want to share a little bit about my mother tongue with you. Trotzdem means despite this in German. And in my talk, I'm going to use this as a literary device that represents the system that women have to succeed despite the obstacles that we will need to overcome with a true 180-degree turnaround to advance the policy issues that we have fallen behind on. Now, many of you might think that Germany must be progressive when it comes to women in politics. After all, we had a female chancellor for 16 years. And honestly, growing up with Angela Merkel for the first 16 years of my life, I thought the same way. She wasn't a female leader, she was the leader. And that normalcy made me think that Germany must be miles ahead on women in politics. In reality, though, the country still struggles with deeply ingrained biases. The sexist comments that I encountered weren't just offhand remarks. They reflect a culture that still struggles to accept young women and women in general as serious political voices. Before Angela Merkel was elected chancellor in 2005, and after she left political office in 2021, women's representation remained stagnant in the German parliament. And that is because women's representation at the top can exist without changing the system underneath. Germany didn't automatically become feminist just because we had a female chancellor. People just got used to the idea that a woman could lead, while still accepting a political system that is not made for women in general. Similarly, in the US, with Kamala Harris becoming the first female vice president, could have been a cultural shift. But just like with Merkel, one breakthrough didn't rewrite the whole system. It changed what people could imagine, not what politics rewarded. Instead, the 2024 election did not see a female president, nor did it shift gender demographics in Congress, with women's representation remaining stagnant at 28% of federal lawmakers. So, what do you do when people say you don't belong to politics? But when politics is your passion, your major, your dream, when you see it not for its power, but what it really is, a tool. But a tool to make people happy. When I wanted to become a candidate for the German federal parliament, the president of the local state board initially opposed that idea. He said that a man would get more votes than me or the other woman who offered her candidacy. A statement which is not supported by research. To make sure that I wouldn't win the nomination, he then spread a lie that the state board would not support my candidacy. Trotzdem, despite this, I ran. So I did what I had to do. I called the president of the state board to ask him if any of these allegations were true. And of course, they weren't. Luckily for me, he then wrote an email to the local party president stating exactly that. In the end, I was nominated and he was forced to resign. But I shouldn't have needed that much stamina to just stand in the starting line. But I did. The truth is, it wasn't only sexism, it was age too. I wasn't just a female candidate, I was a young female candidate. And that intersection shaped everything about my campaign. Youth politics matters because the decisions that we make today are the ones that we, the younger generation, have to live with the longest. Affordable education, cost of living, those aren't abstract issues to us. They're everyday reality. And if young people don't fight for these issues, no one will. So, what do you say to a young candidate that is passionate about these issues? Something like, "You got this, right?" The representative of the far-right AfD, the Alternative for Germany, chose something else. He posted, and I quote, "Interns should not rule this country." I wasn't even an intern. But that is how intimidation works. It's not about logic. It is about sending a message. You don't belong here. Trotzdem, despite this, I ran. The truth is, it's hard being a woman in politics. It's even harder being a young woman in politics. So all the future women out there will need the same resilience. The good news is, the problem is not that women can win. The reason why we have the missing representation of women in politics is not overt discrimination. Women actually have a slight advantage over their male counterparts, as this graphic shows. But women struggle with getting elected because voters reward what hurts women the most. Most voters still prefer candidates that are either married or have children. But these characteristics are much harder for women than for men. And that is because politics is time-consuming and demanding. A woman with children and that is married cannot deliver on that most of the time. A young candidate that would be able to commit to this time-demanding and time-consuming life is not rewarded by voters. In our society, marriage and motherhood are treated as shorthand for maturity, responsibility, and the so-called life experience. The experiences the younger people have are dismissed as less legitimate. Instead, we should judge candidates based on the depth of their experience, their commitment to public service, and their ability to represent the lives of the people they seek to serve. The consequences of this double bind go far beyond fairness, because who is in the room shapes the agenda. Evidence across democracies have shown that men and women have different policy priorities. Because women still shoulder most of the household and care work, they push education and health policy higher than their male counterparts. And these are exactly the issues many countries lack, including the US. So when women are not in the room, those priorities aren't on the agenda. So for a true 180-degree turnaround, we don't need new policies. We need better representation. Women will be the ones that advance the issues the US has fallen behind on. Gun violence is a clear example because the urgency of the situation is felt differently. A KFF national survey found that 57% of women, compared to 43% of men, say that gun violence is either a constant threat or a major concern in their local communities. So representation of women is not symbolic. It has real-world ramifications. If more women were elected politicians, more leaders would treat gun violence, the public safety crisis it is, and put it on the top of the agenda. And we've seen this before. Take the Family and Medical Leave Act, for example. It guarantees workers 12 weeks of unpaid leave due to family and medical reasons. For years, it was blocked in Congress and vetoed twice. But as women's representation marginally rose, so did the policy, and it advanced. Representative Patricia Schroeder of Colorado kept pushing. And after nearly a decade of organizing and persistence, the policy finally passed in 1993. Progress didn't happen because the policy suddenly became more important. It happened because more women were in the fight and refused to let it disappear. So if we want a true 180-degree turnaround on these issues, it won't happen by mistake. It will depend on changing how we recruit candidates, how we prepare candidates, and how household work is shared, so that women can enter politics on equal footing. I've seen how parties recruit for places on the list or constituencies. And what I've seen is that too often, women are just put on the list to check a box or fill a quota, or are put in constituencies or places on the list without no real chance of winning. Empowerment programs help, yes, but empowerment means little if women are abandoned the minute real power is on the line. We need to make nominations transparent. Behind closed doors selection tends to reward those who are already in the club. But if politics quietly demands endless hours of unpaid work, it systematically rewards those who can be endlessly available. And that is still men. It is dangerous to think just because I made it, she can make it too. We need mentorship that is real, media coaching, debate prep, fundraising support, and support when attacks turn personal. We need childcare at events and conventions, parental leave, and hybrid participation, so that politics isn't limited to those who can sacrifice everything else. Universities need to help too. They can offer campaign training workshops. Before campaign, one has to know one's passion. You need to be able to sell yourself and your story. You need to be able to network. But before everything else, you need encouragement. You need someone to look you in the eye and say, yes, you belong here. Your voice matters. Some schools already offer this campaign training. Yale's campaign school offers one-day workshops for everyone who is willing to pay $5,000 and $2,500 for online workshops. Duke used to offer one-day workshops for free for its students. We need to turn both of these approaches around with a 180-degree turnaround. We need training that is free, accessible, and ongoing. Not a luxury product, but a constant pipeline. We need to turn politics around from asking women to fit politics to asking politics to fit us all. For far too long, women have been told to endure, to push anyway, to survive, trotzdem, to succeed anyways. But survival is not equality. If parties change how they recruit, if households change how they share, if universities change how they prepare, and if voters change how they reward, then we turn by 180 degrees. Imagine if the first word a woman heard was not what she wore, but what she would change. Imagine what would happen to public safety, education, and health policy if women not just participate in politics, but turn it and shape it by 180 degrees. Let's stop debating whether women belong to politics and see what politics actually looks like when women are everywhere decisions are made. That's the turn. Thank you.